Hey sis, each month inside Entrusted Women University, we feature a brand new interview. You can watch the full interview only in Entrusted Women University, but you can check out this snippet right now.
Like, I'm paying my bookkeeper. I want to report or something. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother her. Oh, she's so busy. Well, the publicist has lots of clients. I'm like, what? Are you not paying these people? Are they not actually literally here to serve you? What is it about being served that is difficult for you, Shantae? So if it's difficult for you to receive love and service that way, yes, it's going to be difficult for you to give it too. You may give things to people, but it's coming from a place that's not fully engulfed by love. Right. And so I'm seeing my own limitations to love based on my limitations to be loved. And it's making me want to go to God and be like, God, I need you to love me. I need you to teach me how to let you love me. Right. And that's what this book is. It's not like go and love people. It's like sit before the Holy Spirit. Let God love you. And as you receive God's love, let God teach you how to love other people. Love is coming through you. Love is not coming from you directly. Love is coming through you from the Holy Spirit to your neighbor, and you're getting love in the process, right? It's not by.
Well, hello, Entrusted Women. I am excited to present someone new to you, and she may be new or she may be someone you are familiar with, Shantae. How you doing, Shantae?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I first met you, Shantae, when we did in one of the 2021 conference.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And I remember that we were corresponding back and forth, and your email address was yougoshantae@gmail.com.
Yes. You got to encourage yourself. Don't wait for nobody to tell you to go. You go, Kia. You just tell that to yourself every day when you wake up. You go, Kia.
And the interview is done. That's all y'all need, is to go. But anyways, and me and Latasha Ferguson, I don't know if you remember her, but we were going back and forth like, you go Shantae, you go Shantae at gmail.com, because it was just like, okay. But no, you do have to encourage yourself in the Lord. Okay, just in case you all don't know about Shantae, she is an artiste. So I'm going to give you some of her background, and then we're going to dive into her new book. What? Okay, here we go. Shantae Griffin is a literary artist, journalist, plus, and an author, and a performing artist, actor, and TV personality who uses the arts and media to advocate for equity and wellness for all, particularly Black Americans. Shantae is the author of Loving Your Black Neighbor as Yourself, published by Waterbrook and imprint of Penguin Random House. Shantae's work centers on the intersection of racial equity and spiritual and communal wellness. She is based in Los Angeles, and she's a contributing writer for the Washington Post, Faithfully Magazine, and LA Parent Magazine. She is also a former contributor for The Root and LA Weekly. Her articles, essays, and interviews have appeared in leading media outlets, including Ebony, The Huffington Post, The Los Angeles Times, The Griot, Good Housekeeping, The Christian Science Monitor, Marie Claire, Parents Magazine, and A Partridge in a Pear Tree. Y'all, this girl is accomplished. Okay, I can't even do all the things. Shantae's creative brand incorporates the literary and performing arts to produce a stellar content and educates, entertains, and inspires, all while garnering accolades. Upon accolades, girl,
Won't he do it?
well, he will. Won't
He
he
done
will?
did it. He's doing it.
He said he done did it past tense. He's still doing it.
Come
Okay.
on.
Shantae, okay, so you have been doing all the things, and you reached a pinnacle, you reached a place in your life where you were like, I want to write a book. What inspired you to do that? I mean, because you can go in a multiplicity of directions. You could freelance, you could do acting, television, film, the whole nine. Why this book? Why now?
The Holy Spirit. I mean, that really is it. God gave me the idea for this book in 2006. So my story is kind of similar to yours. Like I was working on it for like more than a decade. And when God gave me the idea, I was like, I don't know how to write. And so I literally enrolled in writing classes because I didn't know what I was doing. And then God said, stop writing like 2 years later. And I was like, Jesus, we don't quit. It's you go, Shantae, not you stop, Shantae. You know, Shantae, right? And so I kind of kept going. And then the Holy Spirit had to keep checking me, like, I asked you to stop. So I stopped around 2008 or so. And I said, Lord, let me know when to pick this back up again. Right. And then the Black Lives Matter movement emerged. And I was like, is it time? And God's like, not yet. And I was like, not yet. And around 2018, I was praying one day and reading. And then God gave me the download for the book and was like, it's time now. And so that's when I began to put together the book, the second version of the book in 2018. And here we are.
Wow. And I think that the United States of America has gone through many evolutions since then, so the timing of your book is quite unique. This is a very interesting time period post that period. We had the 2015, then we had the post George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. Then I feel like we have entered
We don't
a
know where
new
we are.
I, you know we're not in Kansas. I can tell you that, Dorothy. We are not in Kansas anymore. It's a new kind of interesting era where a lot of the progression that I know many Black people thought we were making, and was also a little apprehensive to fully embrace the changes that we were seeing for fear that it would be backtracked. And now we're seeing so much backtracked, and it's painful and it's traumatizing, and it's also eerily familiar to what we've already experienced. So um talk about some of the experiences you had in your own life that went into forming this book, Love Your Black Neighbor.
Well, it's interesting. I'm one of, I don't know if I'm going to say few, but I had the privilege of growing up in an all Black neighborhood and
Hmm.
attending an all Black church, right? All Black school. And so my first experience of racism didn't happen till much later because I just grew up surrounded by Black people in love, right? And so I think that going from an all Black environment to like a multi ethnic or racial environment was like jarring because I was like, why are people treating me? Why are people treating me like this? Like, what's wrong with them? Right. And so I was suddenly exposed to racism, um, for the first time, even though systemic racism had kept me in that all Black neighborhood. I didn't realize it, but all I felt was love there. Right. And so that was my first kind of experience of that. And then I think as I, went to school, went to college, I went to a predominantly white school. It was very, very, very white, very liberal arts, very prestigious, a lot of money. And so just felt overlooked and unseen. And people weren't, vicious with their racism. A lot of it was steeped in ignorance. A lot of it was steeped in like subtle pride. And so it's just all these subtle things, right? All these subtle things like no guys really looked at me in college. Whereas back home, everybody was trying to holler. And not that I wanted everybody to holler, but you show up somewhere looking good. You at least a smile. Hey, sis, but the men didn't find me attractive. There's just so many things. I was underestimated in my intellectual ability. So I think, and even I worked in a Christian ministry out of college, and they were doing their best, to love their Black neighbors and their Latinx neighbors, right? And to build this multi-ethnic community. But the leaders were predominantly white. And so there were so many holes in their leadership, right? So it's the image I like to use is they're like, oh, we're trying to clean out your eye. We're trying to clean out the racism. And then they're accidentally spitting in it at the same time, right? So it's like, are you helping me or are you hurting me? And I feel like that's some of where we're at in Christian circles now. It's like people say they're trying to help you, help your community, but they're really hurting you, and they're ignorant to it, or they don't want to see actually what's happening. So,
Woo, Shantae. Oh my goodness, you're stirring the Kool-Aid early. That's some hard things that you are saying. And I think, as I've said in this, and I too didn't recognize racism until much later in my life because I was in predominantly Black church, black school, and I
Mhm.
went to HBCU, historically black college and university. Was in black churches, and it really wasn't until I got older that I started to see it and recognize, oh my gosh, this is microaggression, goodness. But what I've discovered is that really, when you say there was a level of ignorance, in order for somebody to not have ignorance anymore, they have to have it explained to them, and the person who's experiencing that on the recipient end has to have the language to quantify and qualify the experience in a way where the person who is exhibiting the behaviors can understand it.
Mhm.
And I think therein lies the disconnect, because so often we haven't been able to really have the language to say it. And then even when you do have the language, sometimes you're gaslit. It's like, that's not real. That's I don't see it that way. It's so hard for somebody who had a different frame of reference, a different experience, to be able to step in someone else's shoes and say, okay, this is real. And yet that's the whole premise of your book.
Mhm.
So I had this question down later, but I just want to go back to it. I just want to pick it up from the end and come up. So what do you say to people who are saying, I am loving my black neighbor? What are you
Mm.
talking about?
Mhm. I would say, do you love God perfectly every day? Do you
No.
love God? Okay, then I assure you, you're not loving your black neighbors well every day. And I assure you that you can learn something from this book. I assure you that the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit can teach you something.
Yeah, that's where that's where we have to leave it. I I know sometimes to even utter that, it's kind of like defenses go up. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not a slave owner.
Mhm.
You just immediately, that's been my have you experienced that?
Of course. And I think if we go back even to the Old Testament, I don't remember all the terms, but there were these offerings, right, that the priests would do, and you would, or that, right, or done on your behalf. And so there were offerings, right, so for sin. Like I did a sin, I have to give an offering, right? There has to be a sacrifice. There were offerings for known sin. Like I know what I did it on purpose, and also sins that you didn't know about. Like I accidentally did something and I need
Yeah.
forgiveness for that. And so I think having that perspective on ourselves and our lives, like, man, God, there are probably ways I'm sinning against you and my neighbor that I'm not even aware of. So I need forgiveness and I need awareness so that I cannot continuously do this. So I think just that basic humility, we're not even talking about race. We're just talking about humanity, right? God,
Right.
show me where I have not loved black people well. Show me how I've not loved you well. God will, if you start asking God questions like, show me my sin, show me my pride, listen, it's coming, right? And so I just think that basic, like, humility before God and neighbor is so critical in all of our spiritual formation.
Mhm. So good. I think was the term you were looking for, sins of omission and sins of commission? Were you think Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way, but I think there might have been specific terms in the Bible.
Okay.
I'm not a
Yeah.
scholar girl. but
I'm
I
not a
but I do
theologian,
know.
I'm an actress.
Yeah, but yeah, commission, right? Things you've done and and omission, yeah, things you haven't done, but I think also things
Mm.
you've done that you're not even aware of.
That too. And even I'm thinking about, I think it was Peter, I can't remember, about he had that dream and there was all of these animals, and the Holy Spirit said, that's not unclean. Take that and eat it. And it was a revelation for him, but it was something that the Holy Spirit really had to reveal to
Mhm.
him in order for that mindset to shift and him to be able to take in this new way of living, new way of thinking about things. So, yes. Okay, so if you are not a person of color, I am hoping that if you're watching this, that your takeaway would be okay. And also let me just say for people of color too, that there are some things that we can engage in and learn. Although when you're a minority, you're kind of always learning these types of things. I don't know, Shantae, you might say if you would agree with me. Like when you're a minority, you're constantly in a place of um understanding other cultures and people groups and things like that because you're not the majority.
Exactly. I think anytime you're a minority in a majority context, right? Even if you're traveling, whatever it is, you have to figure out how things work in this space. And if you are not in charge, you need to figure out how to survive, right? And how to make
Yeah.
friends and how to be loved and how to love well. And so I think Black Americans have that mindset every day in and day out. And I think, and for me, it's extended to my relationships with like my Korean American friends, my Chinese American friends. I go into their homes or into their communities and I'm like, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? Right. We're all taking the food, we're passing it around, right? You're passing the food before you take your own. Just little things I'm learning. And so I think as people of color who've been, minorities in different contexts, we have that understanding that different people do things different ways. There are different ways to show love and respect and honor in different cultures. But I think a lot of white Americans in the United States, they've never kind of been in that position. They've never had to, right? And even if they travel internationally, they go places where people either speak English or they just speak English and expect people to understand them, right? So there's just some, I think, very basic things that people in the US, white Americans, don't have that people in Europe have, right? Because they're traveling to Italy and to France and to Spain. They're kind of packed in here the same way we're packed in terms of states and geography and understanding how other cultures and places do things. So, yeah.
And I will say for me, I did, because I grew up in a primarily Black environment, I did have those experiences. Honestly, when I started Entrusted Women and I began to engage with um, different types of women, different ethnicities, um, different people groups, Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Korean or Malaysian and
Yes.
Japanese. When I really started to engage with other women, it was a revolutionary experience for me in
Mm,
that my mind was opened and broadened to know there are other women of color that have experiences in evangelical church or in the world that I know nothing about, and I can be broadened if I choose to hear their stories, be empathetic to their stories, and to learn their stories.
mhm.
So I definitely think it made me better. Now, in your book, you talk about you talk about checks and, well, let's go back. You chose love as the foundation for racial reconciliation. Why did you choose love?
Mm. Because God is love, right? And if we look at, First Corinthians, if I prophesy, if I speak in tongues, if I do all these things, but I do not have love, I am a noisy person walking around and nobody wants to listen to me or interact with me, right? I'm the like Instagrammer that's posting nonsense, it's just always talking. People are like, like mute, mute, mute. Like we God's essence is love and giving, right? They will know we're Christians. They will know that we are God's children by our love. And so I don't believe it's about doing X and Y and Z to show that you're down and that you're woke or that you love this group and that you're not racist. It's about being people of love, right? First and foremost. And love looks differently to different people, and love gets expressed differently every day, right? The same way you love your spouse one day may not be the same way you love them the next day, exactly, if they have a different need, right? And understanding that if God is the source of love, God is the one who can teach us and disciple us into how to love our neighbors day in and day out, right? It's
Yeah.
beyond what a book can teach us. So that's why
Mhm.
love is focus.
Yeah, I think that is so good, and the Holy Spirit is so accurate in terms of convicting our hearts if we think what we are displaying is love, and it's one degree off course or several degrees off course, or it's misguided, or it's looking through a broken lens, the Holy Spirit will gently communicate to us, hey, that's not really loving.
Right. And sometimes what God's been showing me is my love for my neighbor is limited by my love for myself. If I cannot fully let people give to me, right? So here's an example. Recently, I got a bookkeeper, I got an accountant, I got a virtual assistant, I got all these people helping me, right? I have a book editor, I have a publicist, I have all these people. And I found sometimes it was hard for me to ask them to do things for me. Like, I'm paying my bookkeeper, I want a report or something. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother her. Oh, she's so busy. Oh, the publicist has lots of clients. I'm like, what? Are you not paying these people? Are they not actually literally here to serve you? What is it about being served that is difficult for you, Shantae? So if it's difficult for you to receive love and service that way, yes, it's going to be difficult for you to give it too. You may give things to people, but it's coming from a place that's not fully engulfed by love, right? And so I'm seeing my own limitations to love based on my limitations to be loved, and it's making me want to go to God and be like, God, I need you to love me. I need you to teach me how to let you love me, right? And that's what this book is. It's not like go and love people. It's like sit before the Holy Spirit. Let God love you. And as you receive God's love, let God teach you how to love other people. Love is coming through you. Love is not coming from you directly. Love is coming through you from the Holy Spirit to your neighbor. And you're getting love in the process. Right? It's not
I hope you enjoyed that interview snippet, and I want you to be sure and check out Entrusted Women University by visiting membership.entrustedwomen.com to see the interviews in their entirety. And join us next week for more content to help you on your writing and speaking journey.